Hello there, and welcome to maybe a new series that I'm thinking about at the moment. Maybe some of you have seen that I'm writing articles for the Eternal Post, and we're currently trying to find different ways to showcase budget decks for different audiences. And especially if you're a new player, you could definitely use some tested and also well proven concepts in a budget deck, and this is what this is trying to do at this moment. We are only using common and uncommon cards, so everything that you don't own can be crafted for a very cheap price, which is one of the conditions for a budget deck that has to meet basically. And we try to use concepts that have proven to work out rather well. So this deck right here is called Budget Feln. And the basic game plan is to play well-statted, fast, aggressive units on curve as long as we are allowed to. We're starting out rather aggressively with a 1 mana 2/2, even though it requires 2 influence. Most of the time we can meet those influence requirements by playing a Seed of Cunning or a Feln Banner. Sometimes we do lose tempo and we can't get the Twilight Raptor out in turn 1. But that is absolutely fine. We're not required to do so, but we can then drop it later the moment the curve allows us to drop it. Left-Right Ranger is a rather interesting unit, especially if you have some kind of recursion in your deck, like, for example, Dark Return or even Haunting Scream, as we use here. And the Infiltrate +2/+2 is extremely aggressive. We have a 2 mana drop with a 1 influence requirement for 4/4 basically, and that's extremely strong. And this can win us the early game against other aggressive decks, or even controlish decks that can't find an answer for this exact card. Because if we get the Infiltrate off, we dodge Torch, for example, which is a very often run card in the meta right now, or in general, since it's just very solid. Left-right target caller, I'm not very sure of yet, but getting a quick draw on left-right ranger or territorial elf is extremely strong. So the deal about left-right target caller is that's mostly used in draft, but right now with a very limited card pool on your side, using cards that are doing well in draft is a good thing to do, and you should actively keep an eye out for cards that do well in a limited format, as long as you don't have better options right now. And as I mentioned, the quick draw effect allows you to kill the blocking unit without taking damage back in case you win the trade. So if we have a territorial elf, it doesn't matter if it has 5 health or 3 health. As long as we kill the target, our territorial elf will live. And the Berserk is extremely interesting at this point because we do run Haunting Scream, just mentioning that yet again. So every unit that costs 4 or less gets summoned back from our void and gets charge and flying, so also added evasiveness to our minion. So in case the territorial elf died early on, we can easily Haunting Scream it back and get some easy damage in, especially considering that we run Rapid Shot, which gives +4 attack, for sometimes unseen damage coming in. The Unseen Agent, talking about unseen, is basically here for additional card draw, because the Nightfall draws us a second card. And we also deal 1 damage to the enemy face, which doesn't sound like a lot, but if we get multiple chains off, it does provide some damage and a faster clock for us, basically. And clock refers to the amount of turns we need to kill our enemy player in case nothing changes on the board. Even though it's rather unspectacular with the 1/1 stat line, the fact that it's unblockable basically means that we get a lot of chip damage in through the Nightfall and through the attacks. And in the worst case, it's just a blocker to give you 1 more turn to get your damage in instead. Gorgon Fanatic is rather interesting because of the fact that if we get the Infiltrate off and connect with the enemy face, we draw 3 cards, which is quite a heavy amount for a 3 mana card, basically. And we also get some health in order to stabilize in case we need it. But the health is most likely something that doesn't tackle us too much. It's a nice to have thing, but nothing that we actively look for right now, since we try to be the aggressor in the matchups. We also have, since we're talking about card draw effects right now, we have four strategizers and four wisdom of the elders in here right now. And this looks like a heavy amount. You can probably cut some of these to 2-2 maybe and get some more territorial elves in there. But just for added consistency of the deck and the game plan that we're trying to set up right now, I think running some card draw is nice, especially since we have some hidden synergy in this deck with all the different nightfalls and things like that. We run psionic savants or savants. You will later see that I'm not quite sure on how to pronounce this yet, but let's just call it psionic for now. Whenever we draw cards, this flying unit gets +1/+1, and if this snowballs out of control, it's basically like the Justice card Hero of the People, but doesn't have a limit in that sense that at some point Hero of the People has all the things on it and doesn't grow bigger. So the longest we provide card draw, which we also do through the Nightfall, Psionic Savant will grow. It's rather easy to kill with stuff like Annihilate, so keep an eye out for that. Kill a unit with a single faction, and Psionic Savant would be dead in return to a 2-mana card. But that is fine. Not everything gets through all the time, and we need some kind of bomb in a budget deck to win our game for us in case our early aggression doesn't go on. Maybe you can cut this to 2 or 3 maybe. 3 feels like a bastard son all the time because it doesn't show that you're completely committed, but also feels good for you because you can squeeze something else in there, which I'm not a big fan of. So play around with it. If you like it, leave it in there. Otherwise, maybe run only 2 and really treat it as a bomb you draw in the late game. But if you do get this out on turn 5 while having a board on your own, and without getting much repercussion from the enemy, this thing is basically free to grow while you do damage with your other units, which we have plenty of. Also, just to mention, if left-right target caller gets a quick draw on it, we have quite some battle in the air coming up. This card could potentially, if given some time, deal with anything in the air, as long as it's not outright removed from the game. But as you will see in the games that I showcase, Psionic Savant did quite some work, and it never really got answered because the opponent needed answers early on to deal with our aggression. So that's also a nice point to make here. Being aggressive early on might make our opponent use their stuff early on, which does make sense, but also makes our stuff in the back or in the late game more safe as well. Let's quickly talk about the left-right Darkstalker. This is kind of a hit and miss card sometimes, but most of the time it's sometimes 8 damage, sometimes only 4 depending on enemy blockers. But since we rather consistently get off the Nightfall, we can nearly guarantee that this is gonna be a free mana 4/4 most of the time, but it is sadly rather bad against silencing units, which we do see quite a bit of in the meta. But if it doesn't get answered, this card itself is gonna be pretty amazing and a bomb. Also, another card I want to mention here, but it doesn't quite fit the theme for myself, and I don't really necessarily like it. Maybe that's the way to put it, is Dusk Raider. Dusk Raider gives your units you draw Berserk and also triggers Nightfall, so you will draw 2 cards the moment your turn starts next time. So this could potentially be interesting if you want more inspired synergy. The problem though is, I think running either Dusk Raider or left-right target caller is a good idea. Running both could hinder us in our own way, just because if we have 3 or 4 units out there that we don't actually want to touch and only have a 2/2 stat line, we won't get much done basically. So left-right target caller for now is the choice for the deck, but feel free to experiment and don't just take this list as it is. Try, maybe you want to add some more power because you feel yourself power staffed all the time. Feel free to experiment with your own choices. Maybe take the aggressive shell from this deck, especially with the Haunting Scream, Annihilates, and Rapid Shots, and then give it your own swing, basically, is what I'm trying to say. Also, in case you were wondering, Eileen, Queen of the Wilds, is the card you unlocked after the campaign. So every player does have one Eileen, Queen of the Wilds in their collection after they got through the through the campaign. And we're not necessarily looking for the effect that after we play a blue spell, we get an additional blue spell from the deck. If it ever works, nice. I think, yeah. We just use this card as a flying 6/6, and in case we ever get to 8 mana and have her in hand, we can just drop her and she might win us the game outright at this point. But I don't think she's necessary. But I also know that a lot of new players like to play with big fatty creatures, and I kind of want to satisfy that need as well in this deck. So if everything goes wrong and you don't get to where you want to be, and you can play Eileen, make sure to drop her, and she can most likely guide you to win. I will also make sure to most likely include the other legendaries you get for free in the other budget decks, just because they're a lot of fun to play around with. And if it doesn't work out for you, hey, you just right click on this card text here and you get rid of her and you add another territorial elf and you're good to go. But for now, I think Eileen is a decent choice here. Nothing too spectacular, nothing too bad. We basically just drop her when we get her. And damn, I left the screen. Let's go back here real quick. Just to make sure that you meet your requirements early on. Sometimes you have games where you draw like only shadow sigils and no banners and no primal. We run Diplomatic Seal just so you can always have the influence requirements you need. It's maybe a bit over the top, because in a Rakano deck where you need like 2 green and 2 red to trigger the extra effect from the Champion of Glory, it does make sense. But just for consistency's sake, I decided to run Diplomatic Seal, also so you can learn how to actively use and how to decide on which color to take. Because you can see you have like Primal in hand. Oh, I should probably use Diplomatic Seal here and go for Shadow. And make sure that I have the influence requirements I need for later on. So I think this is a fun card to play around with, just like the deck itself. And I hope that you like the idea that I'm trying to show you here. And if you have feedback, please let me know. And maybe even tell me what cards you put in or put out and decided to swap around and how it worked for you. Thank you very much for your attention this far, and I got some cool games for you in stock this time around. This time I actually started with recording first and then actually checking the list, because I was not sure myself if I want to leave the list as it is right now. But it looked rather promising. I think I have 1 lose in the games I showcased, and I showcased 4 games after this walkthrough, basically. So yeah, have a good one, guys, and enjoy and have fun. Alright, and we find ourselves in our first game to showcase the Feln budget deck. And this hand looks interesting, but we are lacking quite some power, so we will draw again and hope to find another hand like this. This looks decent. This could be worked with, indeed. Let's say hello to our enemy, our opponent. And see where this might end up for us. Setting up the microphone. Okay, we got both requirements met. I think it would be beneficial to play the left-right target caller out here right now. And I just realized I have to put in the English language yet again. So sorry for that. I'm afraid we have to play like this for now. Ooh, nice draw there. This could work rather well, depending on what the enemy has right now. We can kill both right now. Very easy. Looks like it's some kind of ramp deck, probably with a bigger high end. Not gonna block here anything. Thank you. And I think we're gonna play on curve here. Let's go. Attack in. We could see a harsh rule next turn, which would be fine, I guess. Instead we see a Lumen Defender, and they wanna keep attacking with this minion right now, which is fine. We get our Unseen, which will trigger Nightfall. And I mean, they can block one here. I don't really mind that much. They can even block two here. That's fine. We connect with the Fry Ranger, which gives us the infiltrate effect of +2/+2. Having quick draw on this right now would be nice, but we don't, so we gotta work around that. We have quite a lot of card draw in this deck, so maybe we can draw something nice. The Scream kind of does it, but Annihilate does it just as much. We do have quite some damage here. I think we go for this plan right about now and see what we will have to sack. They could double block. They do decide to double block here. That's a fair call by Erinfall. We do get some stuff back. Oh, look at that. All the good stuff here. Nice. Let's get the left right ranger out and maybe even the bird. I mean, we could get swept right now, but it wouldn't be too big of a deal just because we have Haunting Scream in hand already. We do see Chalice come down though. That's interesting. I think we're gonna use our stuff just for an attack here. We would have a potential lethal next turn by Haunting Screaming the Territorial Elf. It has Flying and Berserk as well as Charge, so we'll deal 6 damage if it's unanswered. And it looks like our enemy is running quite a budget list of Chalice themselves, using the Copperhall Porter, but an Aurelian Merchant. So they could find an answer here, but it's not gonna be enough. So the aggressive plan worked out quite a bit. And I will get to turn off the German language right now and be back in a second. And we are back in game number 2. This hand does look decent, but yet again we have the power problem, so we will redraw this. And our enemy's called Eternal Card Game. That's a rather nice username. Very humbling indeed for Direwolf Digital to see someone adapt their name as their in-game tag. We could have different plans for this right now, but considering that we are on the aggro plan, we will play out our minions first before we start redrawing. We also get some Nightfall chain going with the left-right Darkstalker next turn, most likely. And we decided that this is the right play indeed. Drawing cards yet again later on in case we run out of stuff. Right now we should try to punish our opponent if they don't have valuable plays to make. We see the Silence come down on the 0/4. Sadly, since the card text is gone now, she's gonna be a 0/4 for the rest of the game. Until we decide to buffer up with Rapid Shot, which we would have to do before we declare an attack, since a unit without attack cannot attack. Yet again, left-right target caller coming down here. Since we know that our opponent can't really block this guy right now, they could still come down with a Desert Marshal, which is an ambush unit, and it could silence the effect off. But right now we feel kind of safe to go for Strategize, and seeing the colors our opponent is playing, we will assume from here on that they will have some kind of big finishing units, maybe even some beefy mid-range units like Sandstorm Titan. Copper Hole Elite could be something that comes down here. I think the right call is to get the Psionic 7'd up right now, which we will do. We keep going for the 1 damage here. And later on we can buff the Psionic 7 quite a bit by drawing cards, which we will do in just a bit. We can see our opponent is going for his own aggressive strategy. I think I don't mind getting rid of the 0-4 here, so we just take 1 damage for this turn. I think that should be fine. We do see that the first thing is getting triggered, and we will trigger even more right now by drawing cards. And we see another Darkstalker as well, which is nifty. We will get it out right now, and we will attack with those 2 units, putting the pressure on our opponent. We see Minotaur Ambassador coming down, drawing more sigils from the deck directly. And even though it's a big unit, we don't mind them attacking us right now. We could have lethal here. We have 6. Yeah, we do have lethal, indeed. Should we go for the stylish lethal though, is the actual question. We'll attack here. Most likely not. Let's just go for it the normal way. There could still be something coming down. Buff this up. 14 into the face. Very nice indeed. So just to recap, we're only running common and uncommon cards. We use Eileen as our big finisher in case we draw her in time. Sadly, since this is a budget deck, we can't suspect much more. And I don't want to say like, yeah, but you have to craft X, Y, and Z to make this competitive. Obviously, you can make quite some changes to this deck to make it nice or to make it real good. But to get a good head start into the game, this deck could work rather well. Especially the Nightfall theme seems rather interesting. And I know there are some decks around here that use it already. Also with Haunting Scream. But this hand, I think we will redraw even though we have 2 power. I want to make sure I have something to play early on. This looks meh, but I guess it's kind of fair enough. Also, I have to make sure that I will close the window in a moment. It's still extremely hot in Germany, and I kind of have to leave it open, otherwise I might die just because it's so loud, so warm. But yeah, let's develop the strongest unit first. We could have gone for additional Nightfall triggers, and as we can see, our opponent does have a quick spell to answer this, which is fine. Let's get it out of the way anyways. I think we have a longer staying power than our opponent. Also, this way we can provide an additional Nightfall for the left-right Darkstalker. Even though it looks like our opponent doesn't want us to have another one. Which is fine, just as much. We draw sigils right now, which is not what we want. But sometimes you do have to lose. It's kind of nice that we got the Raptor just there, because we do have a quick shot in hand. So I'm pleased to see this right now. Ooh. I think I can understand why you would do this strategy right there, just to draw cards. But I think having something on the board would have been better right now. Even though, does it get it back? He does get it back. That's probably why then. Nice streamer, Mr. Streamer. I think we're gonna just set up our Psionic 7 yet again. Maybe we can get some more removal out of them before we commit super hard. But it looks like we don't. Maybe? I mean, this is a legit strategy. It also looks pretty budget for me. But that's fine. We haven't lost quite yet. We had some awkward start here in this game, which can happen sometimes if you play something that's not yet very consistent. The 7th. I think it might be time to hold back, do we? I think just drawing more cards here could be the right answer or right thing to do. Let's put the Shadow Sigil down. We have a 6/6 now, so our opponent could kill us with a torch or some rapid shot of their own. A Death Strike also does it. And I think we congratulate our opponent here at this point and let them have the win, which they deserved. Well played. Next time we would need a faster start. We are in game number 3 against Tree which is a funny name. We have quite a bit of effects in the hand. We have 3 power, but I think I want some proactivity instead, so let's redraw this. And I think I like this better already, even though we only have 2 sigils in hand, or 2 power to play. Which could be fine though. Let's be friendly. A worthy opponent.
You look lost.
Not sure what this is about right now.
You look lost.
Get our stuff going. We know for a fact that Argentport doesn't run Hailstorm, so we are happy to play our units here. We could expect a harsh rule at turn 5, so most likely 2 turns from now. We see a depleted banner right now, which could be used just to get it out of the way. But I think we're gonna just try to push as much as we can as long as we have the time for it. We already did quite some damage. So if they have another sigil and a harsh rule, it would have made sense for them to play the depleted power in the last turn, which they did, so keep that in mind in case you don't know about the sequencing yet. We could probably make a video on sequencing. I think since we are trying to be proactive here, just drawing another power maybe would be good enough for us. We do find another power. And we will keep going and digging. We will put down the... I think the wisdom here. You have some follow-up units. Excuse me. We have some follow-up units in the Psionic 7s. We have quite some redraw with Haunting Scream with evasion. Even if a harsh rule comes down this turn, this won't be enough to help our opponent. The Falchion does quite a bit though. Interesting. They will heal for 11. That's quite some damage. I think setting up this guy here should be fine. We will attack with those and keep our 1/1 for blocking. Our Psionic Savant. Oh, I should probably ask someone who knows how to pronounce the names first before recording videos. Let's just call it the Psionic for now, so not embarrassing myself too much. We will block here. They are all in on 1 unit right now, so we can just get another unit for blocking, which is a fair thing to do here. I think we have 8, 10, 12 on board right now. Let's get some more Nightfall triggers going so our dude gets bigger. And let's even draw some cards beforehand. Let's drop the Psionic. Let's go all in here. In case they have something to be evasive right now, that all-in plan on one unit actually worked out for them. I could see something like this being run. And it would also make a lot of sense to run something like this. But sometimes you just have a game where you have to decide on how to stabilize, and that was kind of their plan here. Maybe they don't. I mean, we still had quite some pressure on there super early on. Which is nice if you just play decent minions on decent curves. Oh, come on, man. Give me a break. That life stealing here. Unheard of. Kill a unit with a single faction, though. That's gonna be their downfall, most likely. Yes, it is, indeed. We have quite some stuff here. Let's just play the Dark Caller. Dark Stalker, even. And get them even closer to lethal. Now it's Harsh Rule or Bust for them, and even if they Harsh Rule here, they have nothing left to answer our Haunting Scream. Which I would always treat as something to come back to in case our units are down. Even Tafrod is not enough to save you here. Death has arrived, I think. That was a nice match. I like that Trifidi decided to hit back instead of just hiding behind a wall or whatever. It was an aggressive game plan that gets destroyed rather easily if your opponent has the one answer they need. Sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you stabilize off of this, and they don't have any blockers left, and you just have to get trades in and heal up yourself. And I had quite some games where this proved to work for me as well. So that was a nice strategy. I like that they adapted on the fly, most likely at least. Maybe it's their game plan to get one unit out and pump them up with weapons. But I don't think a traditional Argent Port deck does. Since this is a budget deck, I decided to add another game just to give some more insight on how to pilot it and maybe how to tackle different problems that could arise in games like we saw earlier. Losing is not a bad thing, and you can for sure get some wins early on in casual mode just to sustain yourself. But in case you have problems or anxiety with the ladder and feeling that you only get owned every single time when you enter, don't fret, because it's most likely not because of the cards you use, it's just because of the experience you lack at this moment. So getting that experience in at some point will help you more than getting the best deck and the best stock lists from Eternal Warcry or whatever. Getting a sense of the game and what tempo actually means and how tempo works will help you significantly more than playing or piloting the best deck without you knowing what you're actually doing. So I think this is a nice starting point to get going. This deck has powerful removal effects, this deck has powerful minions, and a very nice starting point to just get your first experience going. As we can see right now, the left-right target caller is coming down, but we also see that we're kind of screwed with mana right now, which could prove bad here, but we do get the quick draw Territorial Elf, which is nice. So I think, since I really enjoy doing budget decks and just brewing in general, that I will have to do more of these in the future. Maybe if you liked it, let me know what colors or faction you are interested in, and I will definitely make sure to come back to you with that. Just because it's so much fun to not only use the biggest and strongest cards every single time, sometimes it's just fun to use something that's underplayed or not represented as it should be, maybe is the right word to put it. But one thing every deck will have in common is hopefully consistency, because I like consistency quite a bit. And I think it's important that if you want to go for a climb on the ladder, you need to play something that A, you appreciate and you like, and second of all, that is consistent. We just saw our opponent get the tribute effect of the Jawbone Greatsword, which I kind of suspected
Make
that
no
we could
sense.
see something like this because the attack was weird. Because I assume seeing a Spark Catcher that our enemy is also playing a rather aggressive deck. But as it looks like they play some basically refill deck by getting Tributes effect going and then devouring our own units by stealing them, which is a fair game plan. The biggest problem about this is that we don't actually get the units in our void, as you can see, so we don't have access to them later, as we will check the enemy void, seeing the left-right Darkstalker that has just been sacrificed to draw 2 cards and gain 2 health, which could potentially be a spell that we would like to run as well, but most of the time I'm not the biggest fan of it. So since we're a bit behind right now, we will try to be proactive and put some pressure down, at least if you can call that pressure. Hopefully we can get our Gorgon Fanatic to connect. But it looks like we most likely won't, so we'll use the main phase of our phase right now instead of using it later on the enemy turn. I think they would basically need to block with everything, but we're gonna make this attack anyways. Maybe they go for some ridiculous block and we can blow them out with a rapid shot, which would be fine for me. But it looks like rather conservative blocking going on right now, maybe even letting it through, which I wouldn't mind at all. This is okay. Just play the Unseen Agent now. The left-right target caller could be awkward, just because through the Inspire effect, we don't really want to make this unit dirty or make their hands dirty. We mainly wanted to sit there so we can get our quick draw effects going. But as we can see, our opponent has quite some elaborate game plan going on themselves. Getting a second Brand without fear, which will be a problem. We only have answer for 1 right now. That is fine for now. We
You
do
look
have
lost.
2 rapid shots. We have 1 Annihilate. I mean, it's not the best yet. How would you destroy this right now? I mean, okay, just go ahead. I'm unsure about that. We could potentially see them sacrificing a unit to get overwhelmed. They sacrifice a unit anyways. Play another weapon, get another brand. Okay. That's rather elaborate. We cannot afford to punish them or hitting them back with a rapid shot right now. But I'm not sure if that is the right plan. I think dropping a brand without fear here would have been better in the long shot for them. But maybe they just outright win on this point and I'm talking nonsense. But that might be a bit too greedy here. I mean, they get rid of my threats that are not actual threats right now, just because nothing's happening right now. We get a second one, we keep the Annihilate. I think we're gonna ditch Island for now. We get the guy out here. And we will hope that this is enough weapon recursion for them. We get a 4/4 now, so we can deal with 1 branch with the left-right ranger. And we have 2 annihilates for 2 other brands, in case they do come down this turn, or from now on, which they should. They sacrifice it as well, which is a fair thing to do. We will use this time we have to redraw some cards. We get another Annihilate, which is why I really like this card right now. There are a lot of good cards you can get rid of, like Sandstorm Titan, like every World Bearer Behemoth, every big time unit. We can get rid of Valkyrie Enforcers, everything that's a single faction. You could consider playing... they get another one. Rather unfortunate at this point. But maybe not really. Play it instead. I think trying to blow them out here could work rather well. Nicely done. I'm surprised that worked. Maybe you can hear that in my voice right now. But sometimes it's just the right thing. The opponent obviously tried to make something fun work, which is fine. Maybe they wanted to see how many brands they can get in one game. But if we stick to our game plan, knowing our strength and weaknesses of the deck, we can most likely come up with something interesting. And keeping those rapid shots back rather than blowing them early on just to get damage in would have been a bad call, as we've just seen. There could be a thing said for if we would have used them earlier, we maybe would have killed them already. But as we saw, they had quite some fighting power early on the board, especially small tokens, which didn't bother us too much. We did realize what our opponent is doing, but it was also rather slow. While we had minions on the board actively attacking, they decided to go for some shenanigans with weapon recursion, which worked out as we could see, but is also not doing anything but removing one unit in this exact turn, which if you're against 4 or 5 minions or units is not enough. So that's why I like, especially in aggressive decks, things like Finest Hour, Torch, Rapid Shot, all that stuff works like a charm, just because you can punish the enemy quite effectively if they step over the line you drew. And this is what just happened, and I'm really glad we got this fourth game in to show you exactly how this budget deck works. Right now, I'm still a little bit tryharding on ladder. Let's quickly showcase this just because maybe you think I'm a dumbass for posting this in casual. Sadly, I dropped down a bit in ranking, but I'm still kind of holding my own right now. I'm losing more points than I'm gaining when I'm winning, so that feels kind of bad. That's most likely due to MMR and my enemy having higher or lower, depending on how it actually works. But that's the reason why I'm not using the Budget Feln deck right now. But I'm pretty sure it could hold their own on the ladder without a problem. I might even start a second account to showcase those budget decks in a fair environment. And maybe at the end of the month, I will give this a new spin yet again. Maybe I find some other additions to the deck that could be made. And if I realize that I'm not gonna do anything useful this season, and I can't actually compete in the top bracket basically, I'm gonna feel free to do something different. I might even showcase this little dinosaur deck that someone on Reddit came up with, but I first have to ask for permission, which is a really fun archetype to play with. I was actually trying to build something myself. I'm not sure if it's tier anymore. There it is. It's a rather old idea, but stay tuned. Give me feedback and let me know what you want to see. I appreciate that you guys take time to comment on my videos, also for the subscriptions. I thank you very much for every single one of you, and let me know what I can improve on, or just drop me feedback as mentioned. Thank you very much, and have a good night or evening.